rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick Thomas. It's Friday, the end of the week. Everybody should be, winding down. Let's consider it's 5 p.m. here, so you should be just getting off work if you're in the, if you're on the Pacific Coast. If you are not, and over on the East Coast, you guys have been off for a couple of hours already, so you should be already into your weekend mood. I'll admit I was in a weekend mood, but then I started seeing some things running across the socials because the leftists are out to disparage people, the Republicans, of course, but especially the Republican politicians who realize that life and truth and the reality of life is there and amazing. I'll explain what I'm talking about here in just a minute. But before I do, let's go ahead and please, if you are of mind, stand where you're at, remove your hat, put your hand over your heart, and join with, I think I still have Ms. T of Texas, Pledge of Allegiance here. I don't think I switched it. I lost track of time in my mind because of what was going on. Anyway, join with Ms. T of Texas and the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank her for submitting that. If you want to get your submission, do it by recording yourself saying the Pledge of Allegiance. You can do it on your phone, whatever, and then take that file and email it to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online, and I will take it and, turn it into whatever I need it to, and if I can't, of course, I'll let you know. But we'll get you on there as well, and I need to remind myself to change that for tomorrow's show, but more importantly, folks, I've talked about this in the past. And I've talked about the upcoming, the conflict where a lot of people are like, oh, it's Democrats versus Republicans, or it's, ethnic groups versus whites, or it's Christians versus, whatever. I actually have broken down the division, I think, a little bit more basic than that in a lot of my social media posts. And what I refer to it as a rural versus urban kind of scenario. And the reason for that is because of the fact that there's a lot of philosophies and a lot of beliefs that the rural folks carry that align with a lot of what America is all about. But the urban people, for whatever reason, seem to have, I don't want to say they've grown out, but maybe generationally wise, they've been educated out of the realities of life. And a couple of things, for an example, that I'm talking about here has to deal with things like guns. Rural folks embrace guns. Other than the gangs in the cities, it's mostly, urban dwellers don't embrace guns. They think that, guns should be outlawed. When you're talking about religion, urban folks who see God working all throughout their lives and their days, and the wonders that God brings to this world. They believe in God. They believe in the Bible. They believe in community and church and, prayer and all of those things that come along with that. And yet when you go into the urban cities and the urban centers, a lot of that is gone. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in the wonders of the world. They believe in the Institute of Man, let's say. But one thing that has come out on the social medias here just recently, I mean, I'm talking just within the last 2 hours, is the understanding of the relationship between man and animal. And I just, Tommy just popped in over in Facebook land. First of all, she's under a tornado watch this evening. I've heard about all the tornadoes and stuff, so hoping and praying that you don't have any problems out where you're at. But also, you missed your Pledge of Allegiance again. But anyway, I digress. So let me go back to what I was talking about. It has to deal with the understanding of the realities of life when dealing with animals. Now, the urban folks generally tend to have this belief that all animals are, part of the family and, all of those kinds of things, where they essentially, look at animals as more than, say, for an example, food, or more than a business decisions, like a cattle rancher would, those kinds of things. And so, as far as the treatment of animals, now keep in mind, farm folks do have their pets. They do have things, animals that they love and they care for and they keep, in the house, and companionship type animals. But a lot of times those animals also serve a particular purpose or a job. Something that a lot of animals that are, held in cities don't. Okay. And here's what happened. Okay. So Kristi Noem apparently is got a book coming out. And of course, for those that don't know, Kristi Noem is still the governor of South Dakota. But she has this book coming out, and apparently a ghostwriter might be writing it. I don't know. But for some reason, a story that was being placed in the book released, got leaked to the media, and the left is like jumping all over this thing as though this one particular act is making Kristi Noem out to be like the boogeyman or the wicked witch of the West, or, whatever. And so I thought, I was thinking about it, and I thought I'd make sure that people kind of understood what this situation is all about. And so let me just explain really quickly. So this is basically what's been reported as what is in the book. And this is Kristi Noem talking about an episode where she had a dog. Reportedly, it was somewhere around 14 months, so a little over a year of age. And here is the story. On the way home, the dog escaped her truck and attacked a local family's chickens, grabbing one chicken at a time, crunching it to its death in one bite, then dropping it to attack another, Noem wrote. When Noem tried to grab the dog, she wrote that it whipped around to bite her. Noem said she wrote the family a check for their chickens and helped them dispose of the carcasses littering the scene of the crime. I hated that dog, she wrote, adding that Cricket, which is the dog's name, was untrainable, dangerous and worthless as a hunting dog. At that moment, Gnome wrote, I realized I had to put her down. She then led Cricket to a gravel pit on her property and shot it, writing, it was not a pleasant job, but it had to be done. Gnome wrote that she also then killed a nasty and mean male goat that smelled and liked to chase her children. Because it jumped when she first shot at the goat, she needed 2 shots to put him down. Now, here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. What a lot of people, and especially urban-dwelling, smooth-brained mouth breathers, I'm stealing a word from Sean Parnell in describing these folks. What a lot of people don't understand is that animals, just like people, sometimes have genetic disorders. And in certain cases, those genetic disorders manifest themselves in what it would be considered bad behavior. Okay. Now, the problem with this particular situation is the fact that the dog decided to destroy the neighbor's chickens, which wasn't what the dog should have been, hopefully should have been trained to do. But those chickens could have been that other family's livelihood. They could have depended upon the money that came from those chickens and the eggs that were being produced by those chickens. Or if they were fryer chickens, by selling the chickens themselves as food. And unfortunately, once a dog, in this particular case, but once a dog gets into that kind of a situation where they potentially can get some sort of a bloodlust going on, it's very, very difficult to train, if not impossible, to train that out. It's no different than the act of a wild animal, such as a bear, attacking a human and eating a human. There's a reason why you have rules and laws where those animals must be put down. And unfortunately, sometimes, and especially because of some breeding that does occur with certain animals, there can be some genetic defects that go along with it. And unfortunately, sometimes animals, in particular, if we're talking about dogs, they can't be trained. They're so ingrained with their instincts, you can't train that out of them. So the problem here, of course, is that all of the leftists are talking about the fact that Kristi Noem put down her pup, but they are missing the entire point of the entire story. They're missing the fact that the dog was untrainable, that the dog itself took off out of her truck when it wasn't supposed to, that the dog attacked other animals without permission. Now, I have a dog. I live in the, we'll call it rural area because I have acreage. And I have wild rabbits that run around on the property. I have deer on the property. And unfortunately, sometimes animals have still, regardless of whether you think a dog or a cat or a horse or anything, whether or not you think that animal is completely domesticated, I guarantee you they have natural instincts. And those natural instincts can sometimes get triggered and kicked in. My dog sometimes chases the animals. Now, I'm able to, I won't say all the time, but I'm able to at least give him a command to get him to slow down and make him think about what he's doing. And I can usually tell him, if I see it, I can usually tell him, to not chase the animal down, whatever it is. But the thing about this is the fact that this is a complete demonstration, in my mind, of the differences between the rural folks who understand the truth about some animals and understand the reality of life and death versus the city dwellers who have a real problem. Now I'm going to tell you right now, the one and only dog, and I've owned animals and dogs throughout my life. The one and only dog that I've ever gotten bit by was a stupid little rat chihuahua. And that chihuahua, and believe me, anybody who has been to like the grocery stores with these little, they call them, what are they called? They're like toys or something. But anyway, these people bring them into the stores and, you know, they think, oh, it's so cute. And the dog, you know, all the dog does is bark. And, you know, you try and tell it to be quiet and it can't do it. You know, it won't listen or anything else. It doesn't, you know, I would say half of the dogs that I encounter on a regular basis, okay, are completely untrained because of the fact that the owners don't understand how to train the dog, one. Two, they don't understand pack dynamics. And in reality, what has happened is that dog, for lack of a leader, has taken over as the leader of the pack. And I mean, this is kind of a personal thing for me because of the fact that, you know, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that certain breeds are just so bad that you can't have them. I believe it's all based on the dog. It's all based on the dog's attitude, personality, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to necessarily deal with the breed. Yes, there are certain breeds that have been bred to do certain things and have a propensity to do certain items and certain stuff better than other breeds. For an example, Rottweilers and German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois, they all generally are used as police dogs because of the fact that they have certain capabilities that are attractive in those working dog fields. But that doesn't necessarily mean that every single animal within that breed is either perfect for that, or in the case of things like pit bulls, for an example, or the whole pit bull kind of segment of dog society, that every single one of those dogs is a danger to anyone. So this is part of the reason why I have a personal issue with people who bring these kinds of things up, because of the fact that there is no clear understanding. And once again, in this particular case, we have a bunch of smooth-brained, dumb, low IQ, low intelligence leftists who are just going and spitting out opinions on things that they literally have no reason or intelligence to be talking about it, let alone render an opinion on it. They don't understand the facts. And this is what we're dealing with in our society today. This is what we're dealing with in terms of the political sphere. I mean, I know I talk about politics a lot on this show. That's kind of what the show is centered around. But the reality of it is that we have a group of individuals who I am literally believing have gotten so dumbed down they can't even see the forest for the trees. And it's going to take a lot, folks, for us to change it and turn it around. Has nothing to do with all of this, with the dog in particular, or Christy Nome. I mean, she basically did what she had to do. I mean, I've known a dog. There was a dog that we had a neighbors, some friends of ours that had. And unfortunately, that dog had something wrong with it. Now, I was able to do certain things with the dog and train the dog sort of. I'm not a professional dog trainer, but I've been around animals all my life. I've trained animals and things like that. I was able to work with the dog, but the dog itself was unpredictable and had a bit of a problem with certain people, and eventually, because it was an uncontrolled dog, because the people that owned her, unfortunately, didn't really fully understand that she wasn't all there. There were certain things that she did that weren't typical of a normal dog. And even when they took her to a professional trainer, the professional trainer said, look, you are really going to have to do a lot of work to get this dog to get it even close to what could be considered a normal dog. But even then, you're going to have to watch that dog like a hawk. And the poor dog, unfortunately, at one point, somebody made a mistake. It was out in public, and in the car, it was in the vehicle, had the window rolled down, and a person happened to just get too close to the door. Dog reached out and bit her, bit the person, and ended up having to be put down. But people don't seem to understand that, especially in our society today. They seem to think that animals, I mean, I've known cats that have bitten. Hell, I get scratched by a cat all the time because they are, at heart, an instinctual animal. And unfortunately, we're dealing with a bunch of people that don't understand that. Hell, half the time they don't even understand the fact that their food comes from farms, that their meat comes from freaking cows for beef and chickens. You know, they don't seem to understand that. Oh, you know, they don't understand hunting, which is what we did before we had domesticated animals. They don't understand any of this. And this is the realities of life, the realities of living on this world. So it goes beyond this, but this particular news story happened to trigger, at least in my mind, triggered the thought process that these people they just demonstrate their lack of understanding of the way the world works every single day. All right. Enough talk. Let me go ahead and enough talk about that, but let me go ahead and talk about a wonderful thing. You know, you've looked at these shirts that I wear, these wonderful shirts, patriotic shirts. These are fantastic shirts. I like to wear the cotton polos, but you look at the shirt and you go, you know what? That guy don't look all that great, but that shirt makes him look really good. And I want that for myself. So if that's the case for you, head on over to theflagshirt.com, theflagshirt.com, and pick up yourself a shirt like mine that is patriotic and display those wonderful colors. They've got shirts that have the Constitution on there. They have the Declaration of Independence. They have Mount Rushmore. I'm getting some shirts that have Mount Rushmore and some other things on it. They are fantastic. But go to theflagshirt.com. But before you buy, head on over to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and get yourself a coupon code for $5 off your order. That's right. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online to get a $5 coupon code to enter in at checkout to get $5 off your order at theflagshirt.com. Head on over to theflagshirt.com and get patriotized. All right. So looking at some of the cities and things like that have been out there, I wonder sometimes whether or not it's getting bad enough for Democrats to understand that, hey, wait, maybe we went the wrong way. And honestly, I guess I'm just like throwing out a huge question mark in terms of all that. But check this out. Oh, good old Shifty Schiff apparently went to a campaign stop in San Francisco. He was supposed to attend a ritzy campaign dinner, and he went and drove and left his car in a parking lot. And while it was in the parking lot, he was walking around in like regular street clothes. And while it was in the parking lot, his bags, it got broken into and his bags got stolen. So he showed up to this San Francisco dinner wearing just, well, they call it shirt sleeves and a hiking vest, but I can tell you it's definitely not, it's not the, in fact, here's a picture kind of him at the dinner. So he's not even, he's got like this jacket on. For those in the audio part of the program, head on over to rumble.com and look up American Perspective, the American Perspective channel, and you can look it up and see this. You can check it out. But he was apparently out just kind of hanging out before the dinner and got his car broken into. And he was talking about, or he also said while he was there that, yes, they took my bags. This is Schiff talking. Yes, they took my bags, but I'm here to thank Joe. He's thanking Joe for, I guess, allowing people to steal his bags. I don't understand. That just didn't make any sense. But this comes on the heels, of course, of the San Jose mayor and his security guard in particular. San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan was standing. I don't know if anybody's seen this, but he was standing and doing an interview, an on television interview, and this guy came up and just started, like, I don't know, saying stuff. I couldn't really, you can't, at least the video that I saw of it, you couldn't really understand what he was saying. But apparently he just walked up and then got into an altercation with the security guard, where they were attacked. There was a man who was shouting at him, and then he ended up fighting the security guard. And this is according to KRON4 reporter Jack Mulmud. The fight lasted for apparently a couple of minutes, and then the man was arrested by San Jose police. There's no motive or understanding of what the altercation is, but you have to kind of wonder, where these people are coming from, where they're kind of like, oh, okay, this is no big deal, Welcome to San Francisco. They're Shifty Schiff. Reap what you sow. Just put it that way. Speaking of reaping what you sow, I don't know if anybody has seen. Well, I know everybody has seen it because we talked about it yesterday in terms of all the riots. What am I saying? All of the protests, we'll call them protests, that are going on all the university campuses. Well, the question came up and was asked, who's funding these things? And I kind of mentioned that the tents looked about the same. They looked like they might have been bought at the same place, so on and so forth. Well, the New York Post has cracked the case. George Soros is apparently paying these student radicals, at least the main organizers, in the nationwide explosion of Israel-hating protests that are going on all over the place. It started, of course, at Columbia University, and has moved on to Harvard, Yale, Berkeley, California, the Ohio State University, Emory in Georgia. You also have Texas, has got a couple at the University of Texas in Dallas and the University of Texas at Austin. You've got, Northwestern, University of Minnesota. There's so many other ones. Well, the article here actually has pictures of three paid protesters that are being paid to, of course, egg this on. Now, apparently these protesters, in particular these three, are paid radicals known as fellows. That's what they call them. They're fellows of a Soros-funded group called the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, USCPR. They provide up to, now the USCPR provides up to $7,800 for its community-based fellows, and between $2,880 and $3,660 for its campus-based fellows in return for spending 8 hours a week organizing campaigns led by Palestinian organizations. Reportedly, they are trained to rise up to revolution. The radical group has received at least $300,000 from Soros's Open Society Foundations since 2017, and also has taken in $355,000 from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund since 2019. Okay. We have literally American-hating groups, American-hating people, and of course, George Soros funded, and it's not just George, it's now his son Alex as well, funded groups to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to agitate and to tear down our American systems. Okay? So none of this isn't like just a generic grassroots kind of movement. These are people who are specifically paid to dig into these things and, instigate and incite. Well, you can read the article if you take a look at the description of the videos on Rumble and YouTube and even Facebook. You can read the article, but there's a bunch of information about the three in particular fellows, instigators, whatever you want to call them, anti-American punks who are, and I'm kind of scrolling through the pictures, but who are organizing and pushing these things all over the place. In fact, even at some of these locations, they're actually paid. They're getting delivered pizzas. They're getting coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. Well, they call them, it used to be Dunkin' Donuts. I just like dated myself. But coffee from Dunkin', free sandwiches, rotisserie chickens. They're getting support from these organizations in order to do this stuff. So this isn't like a generic grassroots movement, folks. This isn't like people are actually enjoying this. People are getting together and doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. They're actually doing it because they're getting paid. They're getting pushed. They're getting organized, and organizations are providing support for these people. In fact, you may have seen it all on the socials and talked about on other programs, but some of these people, some of these students who actually go to these things, they have no clue what they're even there for. They have no clue what they're there for. They're just like, oh, well, we just wanted to be here to support whatever this is. I don't even know. I don't have enough education to know. Well, that's why you're going to school, dumbass. Anyway. And in fact, thankfully, at least one school had their crap canceled. Right here in my own state, University of Washington students postponed the anti-Semitic encampment for having, get this, too many white saviors. What? What? Too many white people at this thing, and so we're going to cancel it. Yeah. Activists with the University of Washington, or UW, Progressive Student Union, announced that they are postponing yesterday's, because it's Thursday, UW Palestine encampment because there were too many white students involved. The group received criticism for not including Muslim and Arab students in the organizing. And now they're actually quibbling over who's going to get credit. Oh, my gosh. When they talk about the left eating its own, this is a perfect example. According to Jason Rance on 770 KTTH Talk Radio here in Seattle, The encampment was scheduled for Thursday morning at the University of Washington in Seattle. The University of Washington administration privately told Jewish leaders that the school did not intend to intervene with direct action unless the event escalates and threatens life safety. Still, the predominantly white UW-PSU opted to call off the encampment in order to make sure this encampment is a better reflection of the UW community and having even greater unity with Muslim, Palestinian, and Arab students. Well, I hate to tell you this, but living up here in the north, it's not as diverse as what you would think. Also, not to mention the fact that, hey, this is a leftist organization. This is a leftist organization that is proclaiming to be all-inclusive. And as Mark over on Facebook mentions, it's not racist at all that they're canceling because there's too many white folks. Oh my gosh. This is just the intelligence level that these people have. I honestly, oh my gosh. You can't make this stuff up. I'm sorry. This is almost like certain comedy that writes itself. This is the kind of crap that like Bill Maher will actually put on his program and, demonstrate how stupid these people actually are. For this stuff. Oh my gosh, I can't even understand. It just doesn't even make sense. Really doesn't make sense. Their logic and reason is gone. Speaking of logic and reason, of course, I talked about Title IX having that change. Well, turns out that we have some red states. Yes, those wonderful red states. Oklahoma, for an example, but Republican red states from Oklahoma to Florida are refusing to comply with President Joe Biden's changes to Title IX rules, governing women's education, forming a unified resistance, almost certain to prompt an historic legal showdown. Now, just to be clear, what they did, or what the Department of Education is doing, is they are changing the definition in what's called Title IX. Title IX is part of a Department of Education act that was passed in 1972 in order to provide equal opportunity for women in all levels of not only academia, but as sports as well. So, for an example, just again to give you an idea, if you have a boys sports team in the fall, you have to have a equal opportunity for girls at another time throughout the year. At least that's the way that it runs in terms of, in our state, dealing with the high schools. So that way you can have equal opportunities for sports. It also, ironically, provides that sexual violence is to be kept at a minimum, is to be eliminated, I should say. Not kept to a minimum, but eliminated, and equal opportunities across all of the sexes are allowed. Now, here's the thing, okay? I saw a report that came out here recently that, it's coming from England, so keep that in mind, but there was apparently a rash of sexual assaults on girls in schools, in particular the Essex school system over there, that all occurred in the unisex bathrooms. Now, if that were to be extrapolated over here, and we've already seen places like Loudoun County and a couple of other cases and stories that have come out about this, Title IX is supposed to protect women from sexual violence. That's one of its key things that it's supposed to do. So why is it that when you remove the idea of sex discrimination and open it up to things like gender identity, you are now just essentially, because, and now understand again, not all transgenders are this way, okay? Just throwing that out there, all right? You cannot blanket approach with this. However, On the flip side of that, the responsibility, according to Title IX, is to eliminate sexual violence. And so allowing people of the opposite sex, which is essentially what you're doing here, into those spaces opens up a risk. It increases the risk of sexual violence occurring. We've already seen it in certain cases. And especially when you're dealing with things like the women in sports idea, which, by the way, several hundred, I saw an article on this, several hundred sports figures, female sports figures, are trying to encourage the NCAA, which is our, in America here, that's our overarching organization that dictates to collegiate sports. But the NCAA, they're trying to make the NCAA allow men to compete with women. And while, some you can make, if you want a man to compete with a woman in chess, I'm good with that. That's perfectly fine. Go right ahead. But if you're trying to get a man and a woman to compete in boxing, that's not fair. And that's not right. And that shouldn't happen at all. We've already seen the damages that have showed up in the UFC and some of the boxing rings and areas where women are just getting outclassed in sports in terms of the physical sports. Now, you get into the mental sports, hey, all the better. Go for it. There's no contact. There's nothing. There's no worries about it. But even Megan Rapinoe, who was one of those advocates to get men to play in women's sports, even Megan Rapinoe and the women's national soccer team got their butts handed to them, speaking appropriately for the score, by a U15 boys team in a scrimmage. So this is not a good idea. And I'm actually glad that there are some Republican states that are standing up, and especially dealing with we got to talk about him because he's probably going to run in 2028. I'm telling you, Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis has come out and basically told Florida, we're not changing a damn thing. It's like, we're not going to do it. And so he is vowing to fight the Biden administration on these changes to Title IX. Now, I've always said, in terms of my opinion, Ron DeSantis is a great governor. I just think that he jumped the gun in trying to jump in 2024 for being president. And unfortunately, he's burned some bridges. But conceptually and position-wise, he is a good governor. He has done a lot of good things for the conservative movement. He has turned Florida solidly red and has done a very good job of that. Do I think he could have been a good president? I believe there was a good possibility. But unfortunately, he went back on his word and he started listening to the likes of Jeb Bush and Paul Ryan and one who are staunch never-Trumpers, wanted to get him out. Now, I even said it on this program. I said, hey, Ron DeSantis, 2028, finish being the governor in Florida. Take a year, get your campaign together, figure out what you're going to do, go ahead and maybe make some book tours or whatever, and then hit it hard for 2028, and he could have been a shoo-in in 2028. I think his premature jump in 2024 is going to cause him to have an uphill climb, even though I'm really not sure where the Republicans are going to go with 2028 just yet. We're still focused on 2024 and getting Trump in for sure on that. Okay. Well, Biden, of course, making that Title IX rule change, he's continuing on with his bureaucracy ruling over the people rather than the people and the Congress having the legislative rights to do things on a legislative section Here, the Biden admin has apparently finalized new rules to restrain fossil fuel power plant carbon emissions. So here he goes again, attacking fossil fuels. All right. Here he is, Biden once again trying to shut down fossil fuels like he said he was going to. But the Biden administration has finalized an array of new regulations on fossil fuel-fired power plants. Boy, I say that 5 times fast, fossil fuel-fired. Anyway, including a rule that's requiring many power plants to prevent the release of, get this, 90% of their carbon emissions. 90%, folks. This is a White House statement. The Biden-Harris administration is announcing key actions to build on this momentum and deliver clean electricity to more homes and businesses, helping lower energy costs for American families and power the U.S. manufacturing renaissance driven by President Biden's Investing in America agenda, while providing cleaner air and water to communities long overburdened by pollution from fossil fuel power plants. That was on April 25th. The new carbon emission regulations announced by the EPA specifically call for fossil fuel plants to cut their carbon emissions and reduce their other air and water pollutants. The new carbon emissions rule proposes implementing hydrogen co-firing and carbon capture and sequestration storage technologies in these power plants. They want to cut back 90% of the emissions. Yeah, like he's not, like, I don't think they're going to be able to do it. If they could, they would have already done it. But I don't think it's going to happen. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see moving forward. All right. This next article that I'm going to hit, This next article that I'm going to hit will be after this short break. Let me tell you a little bit about True Grit Roots Network. True Grit Roots Network has the TGRN Blues channel 365 days a year, 24/7 blues, done and with shows that have all kinds of on-air personalities that have been in the blues artist world and the blues music world for many, many years. One of those is a fantastic guy by the name of Vinnie Marini. Vinnie has 2 shows on TGRN. One of them is on Monday called Music on the Couch. Let me tell you a little bit about this show, folks. It is live, cut, and unscripted conversations with musicians that you should know. You got to check this out. He's got like 2 or 3, sometimes 4, depending upon how many musicians he's got lined up. He goes through interviews. He plays some of their choice songs, and you get a backstage look into these folks' lives, and especially with their music. You need to check it out. Music on the Couch occurs Mondays, 8 p.m. Central Time to 11 p.m. Central. It is 1 day a week that it shows up. It's Monday, once again, every Monday from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central. The show itself, Music on the Couch, has been around for a while. It started on February 10th, 2010, and had an expressed goal of giving musicians a voice of their own. Interviews are not colored by a journalist's misinterpretations. There's over 660 shows as of September 5th of 2023 and over 2,500 interviews. You can find all of those interviews at musiconthecouch.com. That's musiconthecouch, all one word.com. And you can go and check his show out. Airs again Monday, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central. It is live, cut, and unscripted. That is Vinnie Marini's show, Music on the Couch, exclusively on the True Grit Roots Network, TGRN Blues channel. Yes. Mark over on Facebook says, I wish there was rock. Well, I can't really let you know too much, but believe me, we've got plans to expand. We've got plans to expand, and it would that's one of them. All right. That's one of the channels that we're planning on going to. All right. So speaking of radio stations and everything else and channels and all that stuff, the FCC has quietly reintroduced what they call net neutrality. Now, you'll recall during the Obama administration era that they introduced this net neutrality idea. And they went ahead when the Trump administration came in 2017, he got rid of it. Well, now apparently it's back again. And FCC Commissioner Carr is not very happy with this because of the fact that the FCC's reinstatement of net neutrality rules is a regulatory overreach that will chill investment by internet providers. So this happened yesterday. They voted to approve a regulation that will reinstate net neutrality rules and allow the agency to regulate broadband internet access as a telecommunications service. As I said, they were first imposed during the Obama administration in 2015, but were repealed in 2017. Which returned the broadband internet back to being regulated as an information service. With the Biden administration having returned it in a vote of 3-2, by the way, the agency is reinstating net neutrality rules that allow broadband to be regulated under Title II of the Telecommunications Act. So here's the thing. They are thinking that this is going to be good for consumers, that this is good for public safety and good for national security. That's why they did this. Now, note, you've got to read in between the lines because this is leftist, folks, okay? Read in between the lines with the idea of good for consumers, no. Good for public safety, meaning that we are going to control more of what's going on. And good for national security, yeah, they're looking to do this, honestly, to start to make access to the internet basically like rent controlled, price controlled, so on and so forth. So what's going to happen is businesses and outside investors who have been putting in all kinds of equipment and materials and everything else in order to boost speeds and lower prices are going to basically end up being more controlled by the government. And in fact, what a lot of people, or what FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr has pointed out, that without being regulated by Title II, the FTC could actually get involved with price issues. Well, because now they've taken it and put it under Title II, the FTC can't get involved with any kind of pricing irregularities and things like that. So in other words, the government can't police itself under the Federal Trade Commission. So this is not exactly the best move for them. But this follows right along with the whole TikTok ban that got signed here recently. Now, for a lot of people thinking, hey, TikTok, banning it is good. Well, yes, because of the harm that it is doing to our children and some of the things that are being promoted on the platform is definitely a bit of a problem. However, the bill itself, the TikTok ban bill, and we're going to call it the ban bill, actually was designed to basically say, hey, TikTok, if you want to stay in the U.S., you have to sell off that business. Well, I think they're called ByteDance. Yes, ByteDance must divest the app within a year or it will be banned throughout the United States. Now, ByteDance has, according to the bill, 9 months to finalize the deal, which expires on January 19th, one day before the end of Biden's term, with a possibility of a 3 months extension if progress is demonstrated. Now, TikTok plans to challenge the law's constitutionality in court, No surprise there. Joe Biden is probably the most challenged president in in my lifetime anyway. But the thing here is that they are also saying, TikTok is also saying that they're not planning on selling anything off. They really don't want to sell it off. They're not looking to sell it off. So this is, with the clock ticking, this is going to look more and more like it's likely to get banned. Now, I have a problem with this. Being a free speech advocate, I have an issue with this, regardless of what TikTok does and has done to our children. Okay. I am unwilling to support this TikTok ban. And the reason being is the same thing that I would say with free speech with regards to anybody who is a racist or a Nazi or anything like that. If they're not breaking current federal law, then they have a right, just like anybody on X or whoever, or me here. I have a right to be able to disseminate my beliefs and opinions and everything else. As long as I'm not breaking the law, I'm fine. The challenge here, of course, is the fact that TikTok is a Chinese-owned company. So I understand the desire to break the control of the CCP on TikTok. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think banning is the way to go about it. Now, because Apple and Google are privately owned companies that are providing spaces for apps, and several apps in the past have been taken down and removed. Perfect example was Parler. The whole Parler thing where, AWS did what it did and so on and so forth, and it happened. The same thing could be said of TikTok. The only difference here is the fact that Google and AWS and all of those, and Apple, all believe in what TikTok is promoting. And so, of course, they're not going to do anything for essentially the good of the people. But that being said, again, I'm kind of falling on the fact that this is a free speech issue and it should not be banned in America, unfortunately. Anyway. All right. Let's see. One other thing. Oh, just one last thing before I go here. So one of the things that's occurring in Hollywood, and I'm actually really glad to see this. I mean, obviously with Walt Disney and the Disney company, Disney Plus and all of that, you have companies like Daily Wire that have produced family-friendly, kid-friendly content. Daily Wire has produced a couple of movies and things like that. You have independent studios that are outside of the Hollywood sphere that are producing great content, such as The Sound of Freedom, and great compelling content with that. We also have another one that is coming out. Now, I'm probably not going to see it in theaters, although it is supposed to come out today. I'm probably not going to see it in theaters, but I am looking forward to seeing it elsewise when it comes out, hopefully on video or streaming platforms. And that happens to be a movie called Unsung Hero. And I actually, the reason why I picked or clicked on this particular one is because of the fact that I actually like Lucas Black. Lucas Black, for those that may not know, he used to star, or was one of the stars in NCIS New Orleans with Scott Bakula. He also had he also was the star in, I think it was Fast and the Furious 3, where he goes Tokyo Drift, where he goes to Tokyo and learns how to drift over there. And I won't give away too much of the plot, but there it is. But Lucas Black actually took some time off, and he left. And he left New Orleans with the idea that he was going to put his family and God first. Now, that being said, that actually, piques my interest, definitely, because I enjoy actors like Kevin Sorbo and some others who have done this, who actually stand up and talk about God. I mean, Denzel Washington, as an example, has no problem talking about God in his life, and he encourages others to understand of God's gifts and those kinds of things. So I see these artists, and I want to embrace and encourage them. And especially when we're talking about independent films. Now, this particular film, I know I don't talk about films very much, but this particular film is actually a chronicle of a family Christian pop band called For King and Country. How they came here to the U.S. to rebuild their lives. The family itself, my understanding, is from Australia. And Lucas got on board because he was excited, he says, about some of the stories. In this particular case, they don't come around very often, and he looks at it as a blessing. So I just encourage, it was shot in Louisville, Kentucky, not far from where he actually lives with his wife and 3 children. But I would suggest giving this a shot. It looks interesting, and here, let me play the trailer for you, so you can kind of see what the trailer's all about.
Okay, stay close. Let's go.
How y'all doing?
Are y'all from England?
Australia. Australia. Wish I had an accent.
Dad, I wrote a song. Thought maybe we could ask for an audition.
Oh, that's great, honey. Let's take it one step at a time. Kay tells me you're a promoter. You know someone looking for one. Well, I may know somebody who should be.
She's been given a beautiful voice. It's a miracle.
She's a special one, son. Your family, they're not in the way. They are the way.
There's no food, and we're almost out of money. We need to make some changes. Kids, we need your help. This is everything we have, and sometimes it's going to grow, and sometimes it will shrink, but it cannot be allowed to disappear. I wonder if he's right. Maybe I'm not meant to sing. Or maybe you're not meant to sing other people's songs. It's going to be dangerous and scary. And giving up, giving in, it's not an option.
Whatever your dream is, I know you can achieve it. Please welcome my big sister.
My dream is to be like you. It always has been.
I want a record deal. So do I.
Yeah, well, boys, get in line.
All right. So I want to encourage people. It's stuff like this that I think makes America great. You know, we have an opportunity to support places like this and support ventures like this. And I really think that we should give this one a chance. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And obviously the more that we support independent, movies and video, and of course, independent artists like me, the better off we're going to be, because realistically, if you think about the quick history of where we got, how we got to this point in America, was because we ceded our culture. We ceded things to the education system and gave it over to the left. We ceded things like Hollywood and gave it over to the left. We ceded things like books and television shows and all kinds of stuff. We ceded all of it to the left. And we need to make sure that we give opportunities like this the chance to thrive and to grow. Like I said, Sound of Freedom, while it handled a topic that was very difficult to deal with when you went through it, it still was a very, very well put together film. And it was incredible. It was incredible. All right. That's it for me tonight. Hey, don't forget, I'm transmitting tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern time. That'll be the standard hour and a half show. Do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that thumbs up button below the video on Rumble. And also, if you are not on Rumble, make sure you head on over there, get yourself an account. It's free. And then find the American Perspective channel and subscribe or follow it so that you'll be notified every time I go live. I'm doing this for the next month, where I'm doing Monday through Saturday to, expand my reach. So anything that you guys can do would be fantastic. I would greatly appreciate it. And hey, enjoy the rest of your Friday night. Imbibe if you need to. And we'll see you tomorrow right here on American Perspective with Rick Thomas. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.